It is 6:03. We'll go ahead and call to order the August 21st. Almost said episode. Meeting of the Board of Education. Call to order. If you'd take a moment to silence your cell phones and rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We do have a flag now in the corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Diagano, would you please call roll?
Mike Johnson, here. Amanda Proctor will be arriving later. Nate Sassano, here. Amy Musgrave, here. Michael Webb,
Here. Oh, do we have any changes to this evening's agenda? It's full of.
We do not have any changes, President Williams.
Okay. I'd
Really any room.
Yeah. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
second.
Got a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Johnson to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Move on. Do we have any citizen comments on agenda items?
No, sir.
We'll move on to our staff and student celebrations. Superintendent Nielsen.
Thanks for Wales board members. Here we sit a week and a half into our school year already. It's, I'd say 8 days has gone by fast. When I think about my starts of school, year two, watching the schools around have been smoother than year one was. Obviously last year we were brand new here, brand new at Billiken, so we had those two, I'd say opportunities for newness, but when you walk around the buildings, and I've had a chance to be in every building multiple times, and they feel focused already. They feel like learning's happening, and last week even, it's like they were engaged in building relationships, but also content, and the buildings felt good. Had a couple challenges with heat, but including in this building, there's some power challenges out at Pioneer Ridge. It's ironic, we're dealing with too much electricity going into this building and not enough electricity going into Pioneer Ridge, and so facilities is trying to work out and figure that out. That's always challenging, but when you walk into the buildings and you see what teachers are doing, it's working well. There's been some pretty cool changes. Pioneer Ridge is one example. We were out there today, and the teachers are talking about the moves, right? And how much it feels different having the teachers with teammates. And second grade, I don't know how many years, the past several years, second grade's been on either end of the building. Third grade's been part in the building, part out of the building. And so to have them with their teammates has already made a difference for that group. We were out in some buildings today celebrating some of our teams that just had off the charts growth and telling them how much that's appreciated. So there's just good things going on. We're in a great spot compared to a year ago. And again, I only have 2 data points in this district, but in terms of staffing right now versus where we were staffing a year ago, we're in a good spot. We've had a tiny bit of turnover in custodial. We've had a couple positions turnover with special ed paras that are being posted, but in general, all of our certified positions are full, and we don't have a lot of those other positions either. So we feel good. We feel like we're in a good spot in terms of our staffing. I was given the opportunity or asked to share sort of the state of the district with Rotary. So last week, I was the speaker at the Rotary Club of Johnstown Milliken. And what was fascinating was to be able to talk about much of what you've seen already in terms of celebration, what's going on in buildings. And they were thoroughly impressed with where this district is. Several parents on that, in the Rotary Club. One that said in front of everybody, look, during COVID, I wasn't sure that any of my kids would come back to public school. And now when I see what's going on here, I recognize that's the right place for my kid. So that was a pretty cool statement to hear. And there's no doubt that was, the landscape a few years ago, but this district over the last 3 years has done a good job to rebuild trust and to put out a good product. We had our first R launch, so I know you all were aware of what we did, Ignite to Unite, I think, or Unite to Ignite. I can't ever get it right, so. Ignite to Ignite. That makes more sense than the other.
You guys need to say it slower because it sounds the same. Unite tonight.
Come together to ignite, because, anyways, we didn't do it last year. We got a little back that was something that was missing. So we planned our launch. I'd say the groups that were here, very successful. The families that came to enjoy what was here could be enhanced. I think there was ebbs and flow of traffic. At no time would I say there was a ton of people here for that. There always felt like there may have been more people here working it than there were enjoying it. But I think that's your one. There's some feedback about when would be a better time to do it. And so I think we've got to do some on what the purpose of an event like that is. And if it's after school starts, then we probably missed on what the purpose was this last Saturday. So I think next year, looking at doing it potentially earlier, if the idea is to help build some comfort with starting school. But that feedback is, Allie's collecting the feedback as we speak. She's got out there feelers to get feedback on what people would do differently. But we had community people that were there supporting. Monica was there the whole time. And we had several board members that came out to participate as well. So thank you for being there. Beef and Bean Day was the week before, which in some sense, a lot of similarities. Now Beef and Bean Day being a community event, but some of the similar things were there in terms of what the district was showcasing was very similar. We did, since the time we were together last, we had a welcome back meeting, which we had a couple board members that were in attendance that night. And then I think one of the things that's always amazed me is how fast the fall gets going. We've already hosted a golf tournament. We've had volleyball scrimmages. Last Saturday, we had several teams that were here all Saturday doing scrimmages while I was going on outside. Football has a scrimmage this Friday night over at Ridge. Softball's had a scrimmage, and they get going in earnest all in the next week or so. So that fall season going, and we're up and running quickly. So I'm looking forward to the second year of all of our sporting events, because I think that's another way we get to see students show off their skills. So that's probably a good place for me to stop in terms of staff and student celebrations for this board.
Okay, any questions or comments on those? We can't run an extension cord from here over to Pioneer Ridge.
It would be nice if we could share power, wouldn't it? Josh would love it, I'm certain of it, because he pulls his hair out.
Any other celebrations? All right, why don't we go into board reports?
Like I can start with that. I did get to go to the launch on Saturday in behalf of the library, and I was really pleased to see community partnerships that were formed there. It was very education oriented, people coming together. I agree that there could be some work on maybe the timing of it and getting the word out sooner. I think a lot of people told me that we're here but didn't know it was happening, that they didn't know it was happening. And so that's something, there's always good things that we can work on. But I think it was really good. It was really nice to be able to visit with people and to make connections. And it turned out really good. I really appreciate Allie's hard work. I know she worked really, really hard, and she did a great job with the organizational aspect. I really appreciate that. And then I just want to commend our teachers who I know have been working in really hot buildings, and I've been able to talk to a few of them and just very blown away and impressed by their level of being committed to teaching. And so sometimes they'll shuffle to a place in the building is cooler and they'll bring their kids there. And everyone's just being very flexible as we try to figure out how to cool air in certain parts of the building. So I'm just really grateful for all of the staff and teachers and students who are being flexible with that. It's definitely something we want to fix. Josh it's on the top of his priority. So I just want to thank everyone that's done that. And that's all I have for tonight.
Great. So I'm late because I came from a volleyball game at KQA, which was very loud. Didn't win though. All right. So I had a chance to do quite a few different back to school nights and pop-ins events, and those are always really fun. Everybody's just really excited and not tired like at the end of the year, so it's really great to see everybody excited. And with the new assistant principal at MES, she seems really great and nice. I'm sure we'll hear more about her. So did that, and I appreciate the staff being at Beef and Bean Day. Hopefully you guys got up that traffic. I felt like the booth was in a good place in the middle. And so I think that's helpful to have people see the pictures of RMS and ask questions about it. I get questions often in Milliken, and that's good. And I talked to someone at Milliken's Farmers Market who had caught me, and they saw the renderings of RMS and are thinking about switching their kid from a different school to RMS because they were excited, and they were asking me questions about connectives RMS have, and they didn't know there was like a CTE beginnings in RMS. They were very excited to hear that. And so I'm glad I've been able to go into the school to be able to articulate that as well to them. Went to our launch as well, which was very hot, so I appreciate everyone hanging out there because it was a doozy of heat wave. I did appreciate the different community programs that came in. I think it'd be nice to mix up the schools and the programs because I felt like people stopped at the school booths, didn't quite follow through to, even though there's ice cream on the other side, they just didn't quite make it all the way around. So I thought it was a great event with lots of little fun takeaways, and I think schools' booth ideas was unique and not the same, which is helpful, and it was fun.
I don't have much in the way of reports. Similar to all of you, we attended our launch. I would echo some of the feedback you've already heard, so no need to belabor that point. The one thing I will say, I learned at that our launch about the Bright Futures program for the first time, and I was shocked that I had no idea about the Bright Futures program. I know. Andy Yost was there handing out flyers and talking about the program. So
I was on the founding board. I'm sure we've talked about it.
I'm sure we have. But
There's a tax credit, isn't there?
But anyway, it was good to hear about, and I'm glad he's out there talking about that. So, and it excited our daughter because it's free money to go to college. So she was excited about that. But the other thing that the our launch was helpful for, I spent some time talking to Principal Calvillo at the middle school and talking about timing and moving over to the new building and those kind of things. Talking about when the community can get into the building, because I know that's a bit of a concern. So I'm wondering if we don't need to schedule a work session just to go over the timing of all that, just so we know kind of what that's, we can talk about it in the community. I'm sure I know we have talked about that, but to have it fresh in our minds as we approach that time would be really helpful. And like you both said, the community's already asking. So if we can talk about that with the staff there and have a sense of what that looks like, I think that'd be helpful. One of our work sessions in the next, month or two, I think that'd be good. So other than that, it's been a great kickoff to the school year. Really excited to see where the year takes us.
I missed our launch, which I was sad about, but I have a softball player, so I was watching Roosevelt softball, which they look absolutely amazing. They look great this year. So, and I'm kind of a softball junkie, so that was a really good time. Enjoyed Beef and Bean Days. I think we've had a meeting since then, but that was really nice. Transportation did a great job. And the high school is so clean. Everything's smells fresh and wonderful, so I'm really appreciating the work that the custodial staff is doing. I think they're doing a good job. I did listen to the town board meeting. I wasn't able to go, but police chief recommended we have a work session with us, the town board and police chief to address some of the traffic concerns people have been hearing. So I think that would be a fabulous idea. We need to get on top. And he seemed very concerned. I think you were listening as well. Very concerned with the situation. So that's my suggestion. I'm suggesting a meeting, which is outside of my character. I think it would behoove us to address that with the town. That's it. That's all I have.
Well, we're back in the thick of it, and you will be able to tell that by the list of items that I have to share with you tonight. I just want to back up real quick on the timelines thing. I think that's an important thing for us to work out and get something out in the public for. I know I drive by there at least twice a week, and I know we've got a good flow designed for drop off and bus, but it's still a very tight residential section, and it's going to take just a handful of bad characters to make that first week there a complete nightmare. And my biggest fear is like similar to what we had in this building before this building opened, and we had the kind of the back to school night, student night that brought community members from not just our communities, but Fort Collins and Windsor, and everybody took that as an opportunity to come see the school. I worry that first day back in that new building, 70 to 80% of those parents are going to want to physically walk children in so they can see the building. And if that many parents are parking on the roads around that school, all the planning we've done is going to be for naught, and it just could turn into a nightmare. So in my eyes, in mine, of course, and I'm the outsider looking in on this, that building should be old news to those families on the first day back to school. I get it that you want it to be an exciting first day, but I don't think that site will support that many people trying to come into that building at one time. So I'm just putting that out there. All right, let me switch my page over to my bullets. So last week we had a best board retreat. We hadn't had a retreat for since pre-COVID. And so this was the first time all the members of the best could get together and actually spend some time together. Lots of candid conversations couldn't do before in Zoom meetings. Just fascinating. Again, it's such a fascinating organization because it draws all these people from all these diverse backgrounds that have this thread about building better schools. I got the opportunity to sit at lunch with one of the architects for Denver Public Schools, and we were talking about air conditioning. I said, are all your buildings air conditioned? And she said, at this point, they still have 30 schools, which is small in comparison. I mean, they have like close to 200 buildings, but they have 30 schools now that are not air conditioned, and they have plans to have that done within the next 2 years. They have a fairly sizable bond coming on the ballot November. It'll be just under $1 billion, which is absolutely to say $1 billion. Aurora Public Schools, I think, is going to go for over $1 billion. Wow. Yeah, absolutely wild. Attended the rural board members roundtable. The only two items that happened there, Healthy Meals for All was brought up, and I only bring that up because we have a work session coming up where we're going to talk about the nutrition programs here in the district. But Healthy Meals for All is back, fully funded for this coming school year. But the big conversation, of course, is going to be property taxes. Senate Bill 233 and then Initiatives 50 and 08, how those are going to affect public school finance. CASB is taking an incredibly strong position. Their big fear is that 50 and 108 could cause a situation where the local funding will definitely drop. the local share will definitely drop. But they're afraid that it's going to cause a situation where the state is not actually going to be able to backfill that deficit. And in turn, will reinstate the BS factor. So I know, right? See, it's like, so one of the things that I thought this was really funny, because we were all thinking it, but they actually said it. Kathy is asking legislators to possibly think about stopping any action on property taxes for the next 10 years because of the stress that it is putting on all taxing districts that rely on that public finance. Because everybody is, and nobody knows until, there's a special session that's going to start Monday, and nobody even knows what's going to come out of that. And so for us to be able to have plannable budgets and have visions and roadmaps that we can follow, they're saying, just stop for like 10 years so we can develop something. There'll be a lot more of that coming. St. Vrain School District, this came through BOCES. St. Vrain School District is hosting a public education parade on September 7th at 10 a.m. Not really sure what all is going to be involved in that, but it's essentially a support of public education. They're inviting school districts from all over the region to come participate in that. It's going to be at Roosevelt Park in Longmont, so we might have to just go. But if you're more interested in that, let me know. Get you some more information. Today, I attended the first of, I think, 4. They're called President's Leadership Caucuses. It's quite a mouthful. Put on by Kaplan and Ernest, and it was really good. It's similar to the President's Cafes that I go to for CASB. This one was dealing with complaints. And it was dealing with staff complaints and grievances, and then community, which included student, parent, and non-student parented community members. Really cool. A lot of information that are thrown at us. One of the things that they're going to do with this that CASB is not doing with the President's Cafe is they're compiling all the information that is being talked about and discussed. And then at the end of these sessions, they're going to provide us with a printed booklet of best practices from these school boards all across the state, and then we can share them with you. But one of the interesting things I saw, the group I was in today, the president from Jefferson County was there, and I'll share them with you guys. But they have a team, I guess. And I would imagine that they're all full-time employees for a district that size, but it's called the Family Response Support, and they call it FIRST. That's kind of its acronym. And essentially, it's at a high level, it's a 2-in-1, I guess, for the school district. I don't know how to register my kid. What do? Call it FIRST. I need to get lunch tickets. Whatever your question is, this is the team that handles it. But the other thing they do, they're very well versed and trained with all the policies surrounding. And so the school district and the school board, what they will do is if somebody comes to them and says, I have a complaint about this, or I don't like this, they will say, what I need you to do is contact the FIRST team. They will walk you through the process of filing a formal complaint. Otherwise, you can vent me. I'm not going to do anything with it until it becomes a formal complaint. You'll have to go through them to do that, but they are trained and equipped to do that. I'm not trying to pass the buck, but they will make sure they document everything so that we make the complaint official and can process it that way. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Are they volunteers?
No, I believe it's paid staff. I sent an email out to, I don't know who I sent it out to. I know Scott was. For the CASB convention, the Student Leadership Academy, they're looking for students for the Student Leadership Academy. I know last spring we adopted the policy to bring two student school board members onto this board. This is a really good opportunity for, I don't know if it would be candidates or the individual that we select, at least for this year, to go to that, because they could get some solid training. They'd be with their peers. Plus they get to spend some time with us at the Gatsby convention and see some of the stuff we're working on. So I did pass that along to Scott. Along the lines of students, I had a High Plains Library District Board meeting Monday night, and Yes Fest is coming September 14th at the Link Library in Greeley. And Yes is Youth Engineering and Science. I don't know the ages. Do you, Monica? Do you know?
The ages off the top of my head, do you?
We're not involved in our area Yes Fest, but I believe it's geared, I think, kids of all ages.
That's kind of the sense I got.
The general feeling that I'm getting.
But it's a lot of interactive displays and booths. Ames, of course, will be there. He'll be there to talk about what education would look like for a student who wanted to go into an engineering or science background. But a lot of hands-on stuff just to get kids excited. Engineering and science. There's a dog running back there. It's finally going to happen. I was so excited to see the emails coming through today. The Weld County Workforce Development Youth Committee is finally going to be able to have a meeting here at Roosevelt High School. That's going to be on September 17th. That's the largest subcommittee of the Workforce Development, which is actually larger. Oddly enough, it's larger than the Workforce Development Board because of all the students that are involved. So they'll bring students in from all over Weld County who are members of that committee. But part of this will be a focus on what we're doing here. And so there'll be a tour. They'll be able to see the programs that we're offering. I committed this building like 3 different times, and it was already scheduled for stuff. So I had to like go back and keep saying, well, sorry, I don't have the weight I thought I did because I can't make this happen. And then finally, this coming Saturday, Casby's Boardship Academy is going to be here in this building. So I think you're not going to be there. Is that right?
I'm going to be there.
You are.
I think Amanda's going to be
I will be there.
You're going to be. What the? Sorry.
I'll be at the state fair. Our band is performing at the
Okay.
state fair, so.
So, well,
I'll be there too.
this will be there for us. Will be there. They were talking about it at Rural Roundtable. Excited to come see this building as well. So that is all that I have.
President Wales, can I just address a couple of things that I heard the group say, but I also want to just put out there that in addition to the CASB event here on Saturday, I think we have 4 graduating classes doing their reunion here Saturday.
Oh, geez.
So there's, I think Michael, is it 62, 63, 64, 65, 63, 64, 65, 66?
I am out of those conversations apparently because I wasn't even aware of that.
It's something like that.
60.
I think it's 62, 63, and 64.
Okay, maybe it's just 3.
Okay.
It's not going to be a huge crowd, but they're going to be doing, as I understand it, they have planned that our catering class will do a little bit of dessert for them, but they're going to do a little tour, sit, have a little snack, do a little tour, so that they're not in the whole building at one time, because it's a big building to try to do that. So that's what they have planned. I just want to, I want to put a bug in our ear as we think about, because I've had a chance to talk to Calvillo after our conversation last week too. And I will say she feels pretty strongly about what they have, and we'll get together with Aspen and have her come in and talk about what she's looking at as schedule. I shared with Michael and Nate that she's got it set up so the week before the holiday break, the 6th graders would come for a transition day, a different day. The 7th graders would come for a transition day, and the 8th graders would come for a transition day. But she feels pretty strongly that we need not to have parents in that building until it's ready to roll. That there's a lot of stress. She's like, we're already asking my staff to transition mid-year, and that's created a whole lot of stress for the faculty. So in her mind, she's and of all the people to work out how to make that go, Aspen's pretty solid at a plan. So I think having us listen to that, and I think that is a position we've put her in, is we want to open the building as soon as possible, and it's going to be navigating how the learning systems until that time, and then how do we move from learning systems to a transition, and then transition and open a building and then get back to learning systems as possible. And so for me, I'd love to honor and be thinking about how do we honor that. Now her proposal that she'll bring forward to us is that we open school on the 6th, and then we have open house on the 8th for the community. So just be thinking about that, let that percolate a little bit. I'm not gonna ask you to weigh in, make decisions, but I did feel like my conversation, I wanted at least for you to know that's how she pushed on me as I talked to her about what could we do differently, and she wants to be focused on making sure teaching kids are ready, and that it's not necessarily about not wanting the faculty in there, but it have to shift your gears when you're trying to make that happen. And when we're doing it before the starts, I think in hindsight, Dave might have done it a little differently also. So just something for us to think about, and I think we can do that in a work session.
So real quick, you said something that caused every bell in my head to just go off. School was going to start on December 6th in that building?
Or whatever that, January 6th. January 6th.
So then the open house would be,
January 8th for community, for everyone to get in. But that allows for whatever needs to happen over the holiday break, which I guarantee will be some things. I don't know what. Aspen would love to be able to tell her staff, you're not working over holiday break, but that may not be possible, right? There may be people that they have to come in to get stuff done so they're ready to get to learning. And so I just think we need to take her lead. She's been in it from the get-go, and she's navigating this challenge for us, and it's a great opportunity, and there's no doubt the community's going to see it. But I also think we got to let Aspen navigate so that we get the best outcomes for kids, which is ultimately what our charge is. So, and then we'll get the community in and we'll let them go. And if we need to come up with a couple nights for that, I think she'd be all in. But that lets us get through that transition first before we do it, is what she's going to ask us for. So I think just be mindful as we talk. That's what she's looking at.
yeah, I would love to hear what that is, because I mean, I'll quote Mike Tyson here. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the nose, and the punch in the nose is going to be January 8th. School starts on January 6th. If you don't allow families into that school until after their students are starting, I think we're gonna have problems.
Well, maybe. I mean, that might be true, but we had problems here doing it the way we did it. So
I know, and that should have been.
I think we've got to think through how we do it, and I think got to decide what our drivers are, and that's going to be a conversation we need to have. What drives us? And I understand the need for the community to get in and the community to get in and see it. I also understand the need to educate the kid there and figure that out, and we're already disrupting what's going on to make that happen. So and Aspen's living in it.
I agree 100%, but I will push back on saying I think it's going to be more disruptive to have a 1,500 people showing up on the first day of school trying to get into that building.
Maybe. I mean, again, it's not going to be the first time the kids have gone in the building because they got in December.
No, I get that,
So-
but for parents.
Well, we got to talk about that, Michael. And
No, I know, and that's why I'm saying we do need to talk about this.
I just think it's important for you to hear tonight when my conversation with Aspen, where she's coming from. I think that's important for all five of you to hear what she's wrestling with as she's trying to make decisions that's best for the learning environment of the kids. CASB, I think one of the things I just wanted the board to know is not knowing what the decision will be around students on the board. Jessica has gone ahead and got rooms so that if that's something we decide to do, we have rooms to make that possible. And we'll take the lead. I start with that advisory group again early in September. I'll be meeting with that group month, but I remind the board that my first meeting with them in May, there was interest from people there that day to apply to be members of the board. So I think there would be interest. I do agree with Michael that track they have for students is a great way for them to learn about the board do. and think about how are they how are they active members of a board moving forward? So I think there's a lot of opportunity in that.
So if I could just one thought about that before we move on. I think it's a great idea. I think we've talked about it a lot. There was one student who kind of identified herself as a prime candidate. She will be right in the middle of basketball season.
Totally.
For the academy
Yeah,
event.
totally.
So if we're gonna, if she is one that we're gonna tap and ask to participate, we need to get it on her radar real quick. And I'm sure she's not alone. So there's others that might be interested, that if we're gonna do it, we need to get it on the students' radar pretty quick. So that's all.
In your superintendent's meeting, or whatever you're calling it, what are you calling
The
it?
superintendent advisory group.
Okay, what kind of topics are you planning on talking to them about in September?
I haven't even thought of a
Okay.
September meeting yet. Likely I'll talk about that again and where this goes to talk about what the options would be. I think when we were there last time, we had just approved the policy. So I was able to talk about the policy with them during that time. But likely for me, it will be feedback on the beginning of the year, give them at least a chance to talk about what feedback would they give adults about the beginning of the year? What were successes, highs and lows? And that's feedback that we can take action on. So that's probably, when I think about a September meeting, it'll be some subset of that.
What kind of students are on this meeting? Are they students who are involved in other activities? How are they
There are-
chosen to talk to you?
They are pretty engaged students at this point. The group I had last year were freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. I would say on the scale of not engaged to engaged, they're pretty engaged individuals. And, pretty open and active in our conversations. I think that's a part we can go through this year, is trying to increase the diversity that sits in that room in terms of engaged to less engaged. But it started was as important really to me as making sure it was a group I'd like to have. We have is great. I think we can enhance it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other reports from board members? Let's move on to our superintendent's report.
I don't have a lot to add to what I did in celebration. I did want to bring up for all 5 of you, in case there's conversations or calls you're hearing or just information. We had some calls to the bus barn, to our office, and all around overcrowding on buses. And the statements we're hearing are all essentially the same statement. That we've got 91 kids on a bus, kids are sitting in hallways or in the aisle and on laps. And so, of course, for us, that's concerning. And so Tammy's done a nice job of digging in to try to understand, one, if that's true, and 2, what's our practice for overcrowding buses? And so, Tammy, you want to talk a little bit about what you found, what our process is?
Sure. Good evening, President Wells, members of the board, and Superintendent Nielsen. Before I talk about the processes, I want to do a couple shout out for the transportation department. One is they decorated a bus as a train for Beekman Bean Day Parade, and we got first place for that in the parade, and they did a great job of just, providing that for the community, and it was really fun. So appreciate them for that. The second thing is starting out a school year and getting all the bus routes in place and all that is a huge task. And so I just wanted to call that out first before I talk about the capacity issue. So there was a letter that was read at the town council meeting. I attended that meeting on Monday night. And in that letter, it talked about a specific bus. And so I did a little research on that specific bus, and it's a 7 capacity bus. And the time that we received calls, or the transportation department received calls, there were 61 students on the bus. And you know, if you look at a bus and you have a bunch of teenagers on there, it might look like there's more than 61 kids, because some of them can be pretty big. But what they do when they get to close to capacity on a bus, they make sure that they click in each kid. So they keep track of the specific number of students getting on the bus. And if a bus ever goes over that capacity number, depending on which bus it is, if it goes over on this one, over the 77, bus does not move. The bus driver calls the transportation office and says, we're over capacity, and then they quickly plan to get some kids off of that bus onto a different vehicle, bus, van, whatever it may be, and get the kids transported where they need to go. When things like that happen, or if they're concerned about the capacity of buses, we quickly change bus routes so that they can move kids in different areas at different bus stops to a different bus. And we've already, or they have already changed some routes this year to accommodate those areas. The one thing also is at the high school in particular, bus riders change as the school year moves forward. Kids get their licenses, they get a car, they might drive friends, that kind of thing happens. And so there's a constant monitoring of the buses and capacity and how many kids we're transporting. So just, it made me feel a lot better that they have this great process so that we don't go over that number of students on a bus. And the buses are not allowed to go anywhere if that number is, if we reach, higher than the capacity number.
Tammy, I think the one thing I'd add, in addition to what she said, is we also have the cameras. And so with one incident we had last week, we were able to go on and look at the cameras, the multiple cameras on a bus, and count the number of kids that were on there to make sure that what we were doing would click in and match what was on the bus. So I think it's something our transportation has a pretty process and a pretty good handle on. So that gives, I think, you some information if you're hearing that in the community that transportation's got a handle on it.
So if there weren't kids in the aisle, that was an exaggeration. Is that what you're saying?
Don't believe there were kids in the aisle, but we certainly are confident saying there were not 91 kids on the bus. We're not anywhere close to 77 kids on the bus. I don't know that I can say exactly where they were all sitting because I didn't, for me, I was more worried about the fact that we were running the bus 14 kids above the capacity, which 77 kids on a bus is a lot.
Have there been any buses that we had to change routes for? Like, how did we have the 77 bus?
We have had to reroute kids.
We've not had the 77 plus, but we have changed bus routes, and it's because, a bus stop might have a whole bunch of kids, and a bus stop might have a whole bunch of kids, and so they need to have a different bus come or whatever. So we've rerouted that for that reason, but not for overcapacity.
And you're more likely to have that happen in a district that's growing.
Sure.
Because you're having all the kids move in and you don't know exactly where they're going to be until they come register. And that's been the case for us the last 3 weeks or so, that we have quite a few people registered. So
We also have kids who are assigned certain buses because of where they live, but then they don't ever ride the bus for whatever reason. Or rarely, sometimes they need to ride the bus, but often the parents can transport them. So that is something that has to be sorted out as the routes are done as well.
So the 2 questions, and so the 77 capacity means there is a seat for 77 on that bus, right?
Yeah, and it might be more than, it might be 2 or 3 kids in a seat. It depends on how long the bus is and how many size
But
kids are.
even at 77, it's going to look real full, but they're not sitting in the aisles, right? Okay. The number was 91 that I think you said, that was the report.
that's the number we've heard multiple times, right? 91 we've heard multiple times.
Right. Do we know where that came from? And I think what you said, there's a kid that is scheduled to ride the bus, but doesn't. So does that kid then show up as one of the 91?
On the roster, it
Right.
could be that. If that's potentially where that number's coming from, I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But the what we have heard was a couple of parents have called the office, a couple of parents have called transportation, and then a letter was read at the town council.
But there was, and that letter had a specific bus.
Tied to a specific student.
Okay. Just wondering where that, and I know we don't, but I was wondering where that.
Well,
Did the parents stand there and count 91 kids getting off the bus or something? I mean, like, where
We
did
were
that?
told in the office, well, Jessica heard a message, the first one we ever got was that the family the daughter had images of 91 kid bus. They've not produced it, but we went to our video, we went to our videos to have them confirm that that's not the case. And they were, again, transportation, awesome, and trying to figure out and get to the bottom of it. And I'd say I've put a lot of time into trying to say we're in good shape.
Well, and this has been a rumor for a long time that we have overcapacity buses. That's been I've heard that as long as I've lived here. But it's good to know that there is a system in place to make sure that that's not happening, right? They're checking the kids, they're making sure that they know the capacity is, how many kids are on the bus. That is not really even. I mean, I suppose in some weird instance it might happen, but really it's not even possible for that to be the case.
Because the bus drivers are trained to then take those students everywhere because they're students. To transport safely.
So, did you have? Go ahead.
You go first, you go first, it's fine.
So years ago, we spent a considerable amount of money to purchase software that I believe was for routing, develop the routes. But we also spent, as part of that, we spent an additional funds for the ability to track students as they got on and off the bus. And that was for, I imagine for instances like what was also for safety, so that if a third grader accidentally climbed onto the wrong bus and didn't at the bus stop, mom and dad could call and we could easily say, oh, your child is on this bus. And actually, I think in practice, it's supposed to prevent that student from even being able to complete a ride, because I think it would notify the driver that this student is on the wrong bus, that this student is trying to get on the wrong bus. Where are we at? Because it's always been I think the board has always been told that, well, we don't have all the pieces to make that work. And I know at one point it was badges, and then I think at one point it was equipment in the buses. What's the story with that? Is that a tool that we have?
We do, and we have all the parts to it that we need. The hardest part is having the kids have a badge. And then the second piece is making sure that a bus driver says to a kid, sorry, you can't get on the bus without that badge. Because what those bus drivers want to do is, well, I know you, I want to take care of you or whatever, and want to get them home and take care of them. So it's been an adult issue that we've tried to work on, and like Aspen at the middle school is great with making sure that the kids have their badges in time. Even kids that don't ride a bus, they just have their badges for safety reasons. At elementary, it's a little trickier, although what your example just was is exactly why we want those elementary kids to wear them. We do have instances, like you're saying, where sometimes they're on the right bus and they go to their bus stop, but they don't go to the right place after that. There's different things that our little elementary kids decide to do. And then we have, parents that are panicking because they don't know where their kids are. We generally find them at a friend's house, but in the meantime, it's pretty scary. And so using the tool that we have in a more efficient way would really be good.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. So we have the tools, we have everything we need to do, but we're just not using. Is that?
Some are, some aren't, and it's a process. Like, we need to make sure that we have that process in place. That's on ours for sure.
And the badges that you're talking about, in this current year, were delivered to schools last Thursday or Friday. So they have updated pictures. So the ability to do that, one, this year, without having pictures taken and the badges created before school starts, you're limited to when you can start it. But the badges should be out to students, I would guess by the end of this week if they're not already out, but they were delivered because I delivered them to Elwell here last Friday.
So when we talk about clicking students on, are we talking about a hand triggered thumb clicker?
For counting,
Yeah.
there's that, and then if we use the badges, obviously that will keep track because they scan on when they get on the bus.
Is there an effort to educate parents? They have to wear a badge, they have to wear a badge. As a parent, I remember Reagan specifically, get your badge. You know, it was a battle. So maybe not just in the newsletter, but just specifically for that too, pushing out to the parents, maybe something to go home with the kids, some email, something like that. Or is there an effort to do that to make sure?
There has been over the years, but I definitely think we need to be better about it, for sure.
Yeah, and I completely sympathize with the parents because kids lose things. Every morning, where's your badge, you know? And I had a specific place for them to hang them, but you still, So maybe a push to remind parents of the importance.
Yeah, and I think the expectations on the adult side, you know, that the kids have the badges. Because like at the middle school, the kids have their badges because that's an expectation there. And so we just need to do that, a better job of that, all of our schools, and then also the bus drivers.
I would too say the middle school is a really good example to follow because the kids do have a consequence if they don't have their student ID or their badge with them. And so, yeah, that's been ingrained in them. So might be a system that we can follow is how I think it's successful at the middle school. I think they do a really good job there.
So how do we move forward with that? It sounds like everybody thinks that's probably a good idea to use. And
We will move forward with Michael and we'll do an update for you and we'll have transportation couples with an update for the board at a work session.
okay, thank you.
Next couple weeks or 6 weeks. We got September and October, but we'll figure out a way to have transportation talk to us about how it's being utilized.
Good.
I have questions regarding the complaints about overcrowding. Have we followed each of those complaints specifically to ensure those parents that their children aren't on overcrowded buses? We investigated, we looked into a process and helped educate the parent of the process. And you could use that as a one-on-one example of the badge too, but have we followed up with each one of those?
So transportation has handled the ones who have called that. Our office has also had transportation contact the ones who have called us. The one who wrote the letter the other day, I have not followed up specifically with that person, but I certainly can.
I also wonder too, I understand that we're in a public meeting view, but it sounds like that letter is being read at the town. Local government can be confusing to people because it's unfortunately one of the we're least educated about local government. And so where the boundaries lie get confusing, so they end up going to municipalities because they don't know. I would definitely want to follow with that, but I wonder if we should also follow just with the town council too, because you know, in a public comment that we do to the town council or in the filing with a pigeon, but like with an email, the town council members. Yeah, I don't know. And I've had a couple long days saying, you know, Fox, something, just so we can close that loop to say, hey, no, you heard this in the town council, and these are the things we did, because there is a high likelihood that those town council members are doing other things tonight, not listening to us describe these methods, and I think it's good to also close with those council members as well.
The comment about the overcrowded bus was in regards to the intersection and taking, you know, them to look at that intersection.
Yeah.
So that part, you know, it makes sense that it would be because the person was saying that they drive their student because of the overcrowded bus situation in that state. So it would be.
So that was an appropriate comment at the town. Okay, that's
It
good.
is.
Perfect.
It wasn't like they're asking to. they weren't asking the town council to fix the bus.
It happens and Milliken people reach out to the town to go
Yeah.
fix issues, so that just wouldn't surprise me.
Absolutely makes sense. But I also think it's important for us to share with the town
I do
the
agree, yeah.
things that we're doing too when they are hearing things and when we know they're hearing things like, oh,
I
I
agree.
appreciate that.
Do you think, after you guys watched the video, as kids in the seat and sitting on laps, was there any, like, kids can misbehave or goof around? Is that what the issue was? Or like, why are people saying they're sitting in the aisles? I mean, did you see anything indicating?
I did not ask specifically about the sitting in the aisles or on, but that is a rule on the buses all the time,
Right.
that you're not supposed to be in the aisle and whatever. So the bus drivers, some are more lenient than others, that is true. But for the most part, those basic safety features are in place on all of our buses. So I don't know why that is something, I do wonder sometimes if kids have their perception of things, you know, that happen or they say was something that happened because they don't ride a bus. And so then parents will say, well, I'll just take you. I do think that happens sometimes. But, you know, for this particular situation, it seems like it was either one or two buses. So we've followed up transportation on all of those pieces, and it just doesn't seem that any of that was true.
I personally know that this transportation a few years ago, but there was a child misbehaving on the bus, sitting on my child, things like that. And it was addressed promptly and did it again. So I just wonder if it was maybe, kids can be naughty, right? And that isn't our driver's fault, but maybe it's perceived as such.
And
It's a lot of children.
absolutely,
wrangle.
it's a hard job.
It is, yes.
And what you said, Amy, is appreciated because that is what our experience has been whenever a parent calls transportation because there's a situation, it's asked immediately and we make sure that the kids are taken care of and safe, what their job is.
Definitely been my experience, so maybe it was just, I don't know. We don't have a lot of information, so I'm just wondering if maybe it was just.
And I think you have to imagine that sometimes kids will exaggerate. I was a bus child, and heaven knows that if I didn't want to sit by someone, I probably would have said, oh, that's crowded. So I sat in the aisle instead of sitting with this person I didn't want to sit with, right? So there is that conception of, was the bus really overcrowded, or did they just not want to sit where they sat? So there's so many factors that we don't know. But I agree. I think the transportation department, great job of handling situations like this, which is great, appreciated, because I really respect and admire them because that is a really hard job.
That's it for my report tonight.
Okay. Any other questions for Superintendent Nielsen? Hearing none, move on to the report from the CFO's office. Mr. Everest.
Thank you, President Wales, members of the Board of Education, and Superintendent Nielsen. Tonight, I'd like to give just a brief presentation for CFO for the month of July. Before I start, I'd just like to say that July is kind of an unusual for us. You know, most of our staff are, you know, on summer break. Especially on our expenditure side, all of our certified staff payroll is accrued back into June. That's just a accounting maneuver that we need to do. So our expenditure, you know, so our expenditures are light on salary, but then we also have our property tax insurance. Our property insurance is due in July. That's approaching $1 million. So we have a big expenditure there. Our equipment, our educational technology equipment is also due in July, so we have kind of a lot of big one-time payments. So July's kind of a big mismatch, and it's definitely not a good one for us. So kind of moving on to the first slide there, we received almost 86% of our monthly budgeted revenues, and and we expended about 52% of our monthly expense budget. And I about kind of those different factors. The school spending range was between 8.41% and 12.51%. So again, very, very light spending. Looking at our district departments, our departments expended just over 100% of their monthly expenditure budget. And again, this is due, first one is the facilities and maintenance. The district's insurance payment alone was about 55% of our department expenditures for the month. So you can kind of just see how the story of July is. Moving on to the next slide. Looking at the other funds the district has. Most of our funds didn't show any significant activity in July. Again, there's not many people here, not a lot of financial activity. There were kind of some exceptions with the grants fund. We had significant curriculum expenditures with ESSER 3, the school disbursement grant, and beginning of year purchases for the bullying prevention grant. So those expenditures kind of spiked, with those different activities, those kind of beginning of the year activities that we had. And then also our capital reserve fund, again, the educational technology lease, went in July, so that shows up in July. And then there were also significant district curriculum purchases that happened. So again, kind of one time beginning of the year expenditure. You see on the following slide, you see the grant fund, high utilization, and the capital reserve fund, very high and very typical utilization. So unusual month. When I talk to you again in September for August, things will be a little more normal, and then we'll get into the year. So this concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions that we have.
Any questions for Mr. Evers?
We don't have ESSER funds here, right?
Our ESSER funds expire September 30th, so we'll have everything spent down by then. But yeah, then it's done.
Thank you.
So I didn't think about this until just now, and if you need to say I'll respond via email, that's fine. One of the things that happened at the town meeting, their consent agenda was they approved the IGA for Pioneer Ridge Playground, which is great. But my question is, where are we with securing the rest of the funding for that project and the middle school?
So I'm currently working with the bank, kind of going back and forth on getting the loan in process. I'm actually today, Mr. Roseberry and I, he signed the quotes for the 3 different areas of the Pioneer Ridge Playground, and we put in a purchase order so that we get the equipment, so we can make a commitment for the equipment. And I believe the equipment will begin to arrive. It should be within the next 10, some equipment will arrive as soon as 10 weeks from now, and then others it'll be 6 weeks. So we are definitely moving forward on that.
So the equipment will be here sometime 10 to 16 weeks from now, and the loan will be secured before.
Yes. And we don't, with the company that we're working with, Playground Equipment, schools and municipalities don't need to have the down payment, so we just gave them a purchase order. So we won't, we'll definitely have the loan in before, we need to start making any payments on that.
Great.
Any other questions? See, and I didn't even have to ask you now the question I was going to ask you. I emailed you about earlier. He's very responsive. All right. Thank you, Mr. Evers. Our next item is the consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda through board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
have a motion by Director Johnson, a second by Vice President Sassano to approve the agenda as consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? I'd just like to say there's a lot of exciting things in this, under our employment area of this. If you did notice, we've got a number of students who are coming on as district employees to help support operation of this facility specifically. So I guess that's literally, and that's the literal use of literally. The correct and literal use of literally. We are literally putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to some of our programming. So. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana, would you please pull the board?
Monica Johnson,
Yes.
Amanda Dirk,
Yes.
Nate Sassano,
Yes.
Amy Musgrave, Cole Bale.
Yes. Does anybody need a recess? Because we're got a lot ahead of us. So. Hearing none, we go on to our next item under new business. This is the first reading of a policy change to board policy BE. And when I say we got a lot ahead of us, we are changing a single digit in policy BE from the meeting starting at 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So if you look through there and you cannot find the red line, is the numeral 6. So this will stay open for a minimum of 2 weeks for feedback from the community.
And in the meantime, we'll violate our own policy.
In the meantime, we will violate the policy.
I have a question. It's, I don't know if Jessica probably knows the answer, honestly. In the first part, it says the recording shall be maintained for 90 days. And aren't we on YouTube forever?
No,
No? Does it fall off on YouTube as well?
we're deleting them after a year.
I've been deleting them.
After a year? So,
That's
so does,
I've been trying to delete them after a year.
okay, so does that mean that like we're still in violation of the policy?
No, I think the policy
We have to
is
keep them at
a
least
minimum
90
of.
days.
It just says shall be maintained for 90 days. It says least. Okay.
I think it'd be, I mean, we could keep them, they could be forever, but
Yeah, I'm not. We're violating our policy, I want to know. Right?
I don't think so, because we are maintaining 90 days. As long as we do that, right?
Yep.
Shall be maintained. We are.
and we were actually keeping them for quite a bit longer. It was just, I think we were running into issues with storage of YouTube without having to
Okay.
pay some extra money for that, so.
Okay.
And if people really want to see those, we can make a hell of a deal on a DVD box set and a tote bag. You get the DVD box set and a
Will you
tote
put that
bag.
down as an idea for
wait,
when
there's
Michael
more.
leaves
But
the
wait, there's
board?
more.
He gets the
Called
DVD
it
box set of all of his meetings.
They're,
So you can go back
It's a
and
gift set.
rewatch them.
That's right. It's just like a PBS telethon right now.
Yeah.
Like I said, throw that tote bag in there and we'll get some funds raised.
they're riveting, riveting YouTube viewing.
Do we have any citizen comments on general topics? All right, we do have an executive session planned. Yep, I see that.
I'm trying to print it, I forgot.
So if somebody would like to make that motion,
I had to read aloud the last time. Michael makes me read aloud. Somebody else can read aloud.
I'll move that we enter into executive session pursuant to section 246402 4EI of the Colorado Revised Statute for purposes of discussing a potential space sharing partnership agreement with the Glenn A. Jones Memorial Library to determine our position in negotiations, develop strategies, and instruct our negotiators.
Second.
we have a motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Proctor to enter into an executive session for the previously stated reasons. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
No.
Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay, we will recess the general meeting as we go into executive session. All right, it is 8:23, and we'll go ahead and reopen the general meeting or the regular meeting. Our last item is this. Any other items that are necessary?
No.
All right, at 8:24, we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.